nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Sabar? Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Bahrain?
Here. Item 2A, and just to make sure we have all the board members on the line, and Ms. Samaniego's there, and we're glad that she's able to join us, and hopefully she's doing much better. The first item is discussion information regarding distance learning status, progress, and enrollment concerns. Members of the board, the reason this is here today is because of concerns that have been expressed. Actually, it's twofold. Concerns about the students which are availing themselves to the learning, the effectiveness of the learning, of the communication, and we have Mr. Durazo here if we need to later to discuss any part of some of the difficulties that some of the students and parents say that they're having getting linked up. One of the things, and probably the most important thing to me, that has arisen is not only because of the loss in students and enrollment, but the fact that the students, in some cases, and Mene is going to discuss that with us, some of the reasons given by parents and just information that's gathered is that the students aren't availing themselves to the instruction. Whether it be for the difficulty to get online, whether the disinterest or whatever the reason might be. Our enrollment figures as of the last week when I had the discussion with the New Student Center was that by attrition, which is usual, normal attrition, we are losing students. That's to be expected. We're losing students because parents are leaving because of the pandemic, having to relocate and things that are associated with that. But the one concerning thing is the amount of students that are in the community and that are not availing themselves to the educational experience that's being afforded to them. So what we need to do is we need to look at that first and have Ms. Gomez give us a report regarding those specific numbers. And then we need to look at the second phase or the second issue that we're going to discuss today, and that's how the instruction is going and how we're moving into the transition into the hybrid if and when we get there. I want to make it clear there won't be any decision made today regarding anything along those lines. But we do want to get an update from the administration about the progress being made and how they feel about the advent of the hybrid so that we know exactly where it, and of course communicate it to the community and we know where we are as a board and then what the next steps need to be taken if it requires board action per recommendation of the administration. So I think the best way to do this now is to get a report on the enrollment first and what the status is and the numbers and the reasons why we're losing students and then what that means to us educationally and then what it means. There's going to be some other concerning things associated with that. So Mene, if you don't mind, if you would come up here and just give us an overview of what the enrollment looks like, reasons for that you deal with on a daily basis of why students are leaving the district, staying home, or whatever the case might be, and then if parents are telling you, which I understand they are, that the difficulty with some of them is that they're not being able to get technologically involved. Then we have Mr. Durazo here to give us an update on how that's going. Okay, is that all right with you, Denise, that we proceed that way? Now we'll come to the comment. I want to. Well, you know what? All these comments are on item 2, right?
Yes.
For sure, yes. Right? So I want to get started with this. Let them go, and then we will have the public comments right after this, prior to the second item on the agenda, which all of these comments are related to. If we read them now, then we do this. I think it'd be more appropriate to have them right at that time. Okay. So Mene, if you would based on what the remarks were just made, if you'd kind of give us an overview.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. President and board members. So we went through the 10-day drop, which we wait for the students to show up to school within the first 10 days of school. And if they don't, we start withdrawing them. We start getting records requests from other schools. Where did they go? But we have a majority of students that we don't get records requests. We don't get, so we accumulate the 10-day drop. And there was 167 of those students. There was 231 students that went to another school. So the total loss of membership was 398. And that was as of Friday of last week, but we have lost more students. Yesterday, we withdrew 18 more students. Where are they going? They are going to other schools. They're moving away because the parents need economic support for their families, so they're moving away. We did call the 167 students, which the schools had done themselves, but we reached out to them. How can we help you? What can we do? Some of them moved away and let us know, out of state, wherever. We were able to retrieve 5 students that said we couldn't log in for whatever reason. Either their internet wasn't working, whatever. We told them you could come to the New Student Center, re-register, and we will try to get you a safe space at the schools, which the schools have been great at getting them space. So we were able to retrieve 5. Right now, before I came to the board meeting, we had retrieved another 2. So that's already 7 students that we have reached out, and they're coming back. There is concern when it comes to the funding, because right now we have 3,917 students enrolled in our school district. However, they do not all generate funding, because some of them are tuition paid. They generate funding in a whole different way, not state funding. So in the state funding, which was a capture date yesterday, we received funding for 3,700 students. So you could see the big significant difference. And as we lose students, that number goes down for funding. But all we can do is keep reaching out to these students, trying to bring them in, talk to them, how can we help you? How can we make it easier for you? It's a big transition. A lot of our children, as we know, are being raised by grandparents, by guardians that are not technology, savvy or are not into technology. So they're struggling with that. And of course, the schools are there. It's just a matter of having them reach out to us. But the majority of these students, like I said, they did move away because of jobs. Amazon opened and they were gone. The rent here in Douglas is what they've expressed too, is extremely high. They can't afford it. So they move away where they can make, and this virus it was about survival. So that is where a lot of our children have left.
Let me just interrupt you and then just quickly and then open it up to the board. Of the students that you've lost that you mentioned went to other schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you also have a breakdown of what school they went to. How many of those students went to other schools outside of the city? In other words, did you have inter-city transfers or?
We only had about 9 students, which is about normal in the average years. We have 9 that go to the other charter schools,
Right.
and usually they go and try it out, but then they return to us, and we've seen that they go and they come, they go and they come. So that wasn't an abnormal amount, the 9 that went to it's the other ones that left, that moved away, which now, knowing those 167 kids that we called, the majority of them moved away. They are out of state. And a lot of the numbers, of course, were disconnected. We couldn't get through to them. But the majority did tell us they moved out of town. So over 400 students did move out of town. They've moved away.
Not that I really care. I don't think the board cares. But are the charter schools also? They're not attending classes either, are they?
No.
So what we can determine by that is that those that transferred intercity to the charter schools, which I don't care about, to be honest with you, and they're going to get hurt when they start again because the border's closed. Anyway, how many of those students that Well, you know what, I'm gonna leave that question for a minute, because that's gonna be something else to deal with Mr. Soto when I talk to him. Members of the board, questions up to this point? Mr. Lindeman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think you answered my biggest question was, do the parents that are having trouble online know that they can come to in-person classes?
Correct. And we let them know. When they call us, a lot of times, we let them know. You know, and the schools have been great at opening them seats. At first we did have a waiting list because they were trying to, get their spaces going. But I have not received anybody that says, they didn't give me a space. The schools have been really good at opening the space. I think the high school had the longest list, and as far as I know, I have not gotten anybody back that says they didn't give me a space. They've been very accommodating. It's just that a lot of children are not into sitting there in front of a computer, which is hard for them.
Oh, I know
Yeah. That's another piece, a new transition. It's a new innovative change, and a lot of children are not into a lot of that.
Yeah, and you did reach out to those parents you mentioned. So I'm thinking that, instead of just doing it once, can we put it on the advertisement, maybe on the DUSD Facebook, and say, by the way, you are able to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And so that it's a continuing advertisement.
Yes. And we do let them know when they come register. We do let them know. Talk to your administrator of the school, or the secretary. Let them know if you need a safe space. The people we registered today, that was what we told them. Make sure you let them know. And if for any reason you have any issues, return to us. And so if they have any issues, they come back to us, and it's a matter of communication. But
Right.
It's resolved. Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Gomez?
Mr. Murray?
Yes. Anna, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Gomez, and I'll go after you.
No, I'm not saying anything. Go ahead.
Wait, Anna, you know what, let the board, and then you react to the board, and then I'm sure
Okay.
you might be able to
All right.
have more information. Let's see, Mr. Ramos, your reaction right now.
I just have a question here. How many of our students that are paid tuition have we lost due to the pandemic?
We didn't lose any because last year we had about 4 students and 1 graduated, and we still have 3 at the high school that are paying tuition. So the other that we call tuition are those that are in preschool.
So that's not an issue then with our student population?
No, that wasn't.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mr. Sabal, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, Anna, go ahead and whatever you feel is appropriate for you.
Okay, well, number one, I think what we have to really understand is the data collected. I started working with Mrs. Gomez last week and all of my school administrators to try to capture some information regarding our 10-day drops and those that have been inactive. So what I really want to stress and us to understand is that number one, the number of students that have caused this loss in enrollment are mainly due, I would say, many 95%, 90% have been because they have moved.
Correct.
And so that was my first concern. My first concern was, where are these kids? Are they being raised by grandma and grandpa? Are they not logging in because they don't have a device? Or are they having just plain difficulty? So when I gathered the information, when many of the principals gathered the information for me, it was clear as water that I would say 90% have left out of town. Mm-hmm. And the other, so that's number one. And there's nothing we can do about that. The families have picked up, moved out of town, gotten a job, and the kids have had to attend other schools. So that at least made me feel, okay, then we don't have that many kids that are just, stranded somewhere and we can't find them. Number two, all of our school staff have done home visits, have done phone calls, numerous attempts, in addition to New Student Center, because last week what I directed Mena to do and the principals is you need to start contacting each and every one of these families. And unfortunately, we have a chunk that don't have a phone number, an active phone number, so we're unable to reach them. We do know that there are struggles, and it is a new way of learning and instruction. So there are a handful of parents that are still, that they're slowly catching up to this way of instruction. And I think DUSD has been very, very fortunate and willing to help out our parents. And when Marco was able to give his report, just yesterday, another 100 kids got their laptop or technology device. We have purchased some hotspots, and hotspots will allow families to have internet access at their homes because they either live in remote areas around town that they can't connect to certain Wi-Fi areas. So we provided laptops. We have provided hotspots. Marco is in the works in being able to have neighborhood communities around each school be able to access the DUSD Wi-Fi for those students that have one of our devices. So that's in the works. I'm not sure if it's done yet, but we are trying, and we have been promoting the learning spaces. I had a meeting with the middle school subcommittee today, and for those parents or children that they are very well aware, they're either logging in the mornings but not completing their assignments, or completing the assignment but forgetting to do their attendance question, for example. They are reaching out and saying, look, if you're having trouble with your internet service, or you're having trouble with nobody helping you out at home, we have a space for you. Come over, let us know. You can start coming tomorrow. And there are simply parents that refuse to send them. And so we can't force them because they do have that option. But I think from the number of kids that started attending school every day for their free learning space, those numbers have slowly increased. And then some will, what has been happening is that some students will attend, and then they kind of find out what the routine is. You know, we're in school, we're on a laptop, I'm still doing all my work online, so you know what, I don't want to come to school for this, so then they go back home. But the most important factor here is that we all need to understand that the enrollment has declined due to greatly a number of families leaving our hometown. And the Youth Student Center, and I will say every school staff and administrative and support staff in the office has done a phenomenal job in trying to contact these families and find out, you know, that they've left. So it is a process, and it's a process we're going to still continue to do. But unfortunately, this situation, this pandemic, has caused many families to leave our hometown, causing the enrollment to decline. And with that being said, we at the school site, they're continuing that communication, and so we will be putting out something again, as Mr. Lindemann said, kind of advertising the free learning spaces to try to get some of these kids that are struggling to just come to the school and get their free learning space and get their work done with some support staff monitoring them and offering assistance.
Okay, good, and we'll come back to you if we need be, or if you want to. But Manny, let me ask you about the 10-day drops. You don't have any idea generally what happens to them, correct? I mean, they just dropped after 10 days.
They drop after 10 days, but we do have to do a follow-up because the state audits us and those children. The state comes in and they want to know these 10-day drops. We have to show the 10 days of unexcused, and we have to show that we have made our effort to try to locate them. And so through the state system, we're able to go back and try to track them. Where did they go? And that is why we know that some of these children did move out of town. And that is what we're working on right now, tracking those students. Where are you? And we're going to start faxing schools to say, this parent said they were enrolled, the children were enrolled with you, are they? So that they will send us back a yes or a no. That's the other way. We have to track them.
Immediately after they drop, you drop them after 10 days.
Correct.
You don't have any status on them until you actually follow up. So of those, And then the conversation you and I had when we discussed it last week, because of the concern, some of those, and the majority of those, I think you told me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that parents were telling you, there's just no interest, the kids, too tough, the times are too rough for them, and they don't want to do this, and a lot of other problems that occurred. So those are the ones that you're able to track with your staff.
Correct.
And then when you find out about them, then you categorize them, right? And then they will become part of a specific category for you, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's important. Now, just stay up there a minute, and want to make sure that we don't lose our focus here. Our focus is that we definitely are concerned about the learning of our kids and how that learning is being transmitted to them. On the other hand, a secondary effect of this is, you mentioned the total number of losses, right? You've discussed that with Mr. Soto.
Correct.
Mr. Soto, how much, when you look at the numbers that she's given you, and I'm sure you've worked them, how much does that mean to the district? And when I say to the district, we have a lot of fixed costs, and that's why we're here today, to discuss this, to find out what our next step needs to be. How much would you say, or could you accurately say, based on the information that she's given you up to now, that the district is looking at losing?
Based on these enrollment numbers, and remember, the budget we adopted back in early July is based on a number of 3,800, almost 66 students, funded students. And like Mene reported, we only have 3,703 closed this morning. So this roughly represents an amount of around $730,000 for the whole year. And again, it's a concern, like Mr. Brain is saying, because 85% of our whole budget is salaries and benefits. Also, keep in mind that we are in a hiring freeze, so there's a few vacancies that we haven't filled, and that's what's helping us out tremendously on this. So yeah, like Mr. Brain says, yeah, there's an impact financially, but then we also need to look at the academic side of it first. I'm going to do whatever possible to keep this going. I mean, to keep everybody safe, but also financially healthy. But that number is around $733,000 for the whole year, this lost in enrollment.
If board members, just indulge me for a second, if the district were to go back, when we go back to hybrid, and then those numbers increase, do you see an ability to retrieve some of those funds?
Correct. Remember that we have revisions that we can do to the budget, as many as we want. I typically wait for maybe December, but if we need to, we can do one like in October or November. If we decide to start hybrid for the second quarter, that will be November. That will give me good numbers for me to do a revision. We do have, remember, we have the ability to move some capital funds to the M&O to kind of cover, but right now, as it is, I mean, we don't have to do that right away. So we can wait until November if you guys decide to.
That's important to us as board members, that we get that picture, so that any decision that we're confronted with in the future, we know exactly what the finances are. So, and remember that those distributions, we don't get it all at once. They're done
monthly.
They're timely, so let me ask board members again, if you stay up there, if you have any questions on the part that Mene gave on her presentation, or anything on Soto. Mr. Lindeman, do you have any follow-up questions?
Thank you, Mr. President. It just came to my mind that, and Mr. Brain mentioned that, when we go back to hybrid, then it becomes more fun for the kids to go to school, and hopefully more will come back, and that will help our budget system. I did want to ask, though, please refresh my memory, didn't the governor say he was going to fund at 105%? At some point, the school budget? I'm not remembering the ramifications or the
Well,
conditions
he's
on that.
best to answer. There was a provision in there. Go
Okay.
ahead and answer the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we haven't had a final answer on that. It was either the 95% or the 105. There's another grant out there that is called the Enrollment Stabilization Grant, which is very confusing, of course. That has nothing to do with enrollment. It has to do with the CARES Act monies and how much we spend on that, and they're going to reimburse us. So what I'm looking at there is actually using some of those monies. Let's say we started spending the CARES Act monies for all of the PPE equipment and all of the stuff that the school needed. Now, with this grant, we submitted all of those expenses we had so far. So they're going to reimburse us those monies back, so I can use those monies for something else. Now, they're not recommending to use for salaries and benefits, of course, but that 15% I have left on my M&O budget, I can use those funds to purchase what we need for the schools. So that's how they're trying to compensate or that additional 5%. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Gomez, any question on either one of those two issues? Mr. Ramos?
No question.
Mr. Sabal?
Nothing now.
Okay, well then, just if you can stay here for a minute, because we're going to get into the state of the distant learning right now, and what the administration's got on tap for what the future looks like, and whether we're.
Okay, Mr. Brain? This
Yes.
is Anna again.
Yes.
One other point that I want to make, and I think all of our board needs to understand, is part of my discussion with Mena and my admin team is that after really taking a look at the data and the number of students that have withdrawn, my first question was, let's say, and we said we were not going to be making any decisions today specifically on our distance learning plan, but just my first question to my team was, if we were to go back to hybrid, let's say in 3 weeks, what would that do? Are we going to be able, does going back to hybrid, really, will that attract some of these families to come back? Are we going to get most of these kids back? And time again from each one of my team and my principals will even discuss that yesterday, is that no. We don't feel that right now, with the information that we have currently and the number of families that have left, that will resolve, in getting 300 more kids back. Because as you know, manager said, about 400 kids left. And so it doesn't mean that that's 400 families, but it means there's a chunk of families with a total of about 400 students that have left. So I just want to make sure we understand that and keep that in the back of your minds, because that was my first question that I wanted an answer for, at least everybody's professional opinion.
Okay, great, and appreciate that. And while you've got the floor, why don't you move into what the status is of the of what phase we're in, and how you see us approaching whatever you feel is going to be appropriate. Just move right into that.
Okay. All right. So we know, just to reiterate, you all approved our distance learning plan, and we said we were going to have online for the first quarter, ending on October the 23rd, with potentially being able to start hybrid on October the 26th, which is that Monday. We would reconvene toward the middle, probably early October, to make that determination as to what the status is of COVID cases in our community, and obviously looking now at the county Arizona Health Department matrix. So for what is our status right now? Well, we know that now we're into about the 5th week of online school, and our teachers are getting more and more familiar with the whole online process. I've heard a lot of the principals did a survey of their staff just to get feedback, and you have mixed emotions, but I would say 90% of teachers feel that they're just now feeling that the quality of instruction is improving. They are getting kids to understand the complex Google Classroom and how to submit assignments and how to get better at their teaching, that they feel that right now they're in a good spot. And while we all know, and I think all the teachers would definitely prefer to have our traditional classroom setting, but they have really embraced the whole teaching online. And while it is more complex, it is tiresome, spending long hours probably planning and teaching many different groups, they feel that what they have done up to this point has been working. They still are trying to grasp the attention of these students, because obviously building relationships via a computer is much more difficult than in-person instruction. But the students what was interesting to me after I got all the feedback is the students that are either not logging in or logging in partially or submitting some assignments and not others are pretty much the same group of kids that in traditional school are always struggle anyway. They either don't show up to school, they have an attendance problem, they have an attention problem, and a discipline problem. So they're not really saying that there's a mass group of kids that are now, obviously struggling. Elementary-wise, I think that's where we have more of the struggles with the technology piece, because obviously these are younger kids that need the support of somebody, especially pre-kinder to, let's say, second grade. But the elementaries have been very, flexible. They have different ways of reaching out to the families and the parents. And like I said, not everybody has technology device, not everybody has internet, but we've done a lot just to have those families that would have not had anything but maybe a cell phone to be able to log in and do work. The other part that they feel that students are learning more on the technology than they've ever known before, and many of the comments from the teachers coming back said, if and when we return to hybrid, we want to be able to continue using the technology, like using Google Classroom. So not so much because we're back in hybrid, because remember, hybrid means that students will be returning to school 2 days a week, face-to-face instruction with their teacher, and then 3 days they're going to be at home doing their online instruction. And so they really want to continue utilizing technology and Google Classroom and having students continue to submit assignments in Google Classroom even when they return to hybrid, just to continue that knowledge and that practice. Because let's say hopefully in 2021-22 school year, we're able to go back to traditional school, but with the emphasis that we're going to be using a lot more technology even in a traditional school setting. So yes, you may hear probably from teachers, yes, this is very difficult, this is, long hours. I wouldn't disagree with that. We will all hear from some parents saying, my child struggles, I don't know how to log in. Yes, and that is true, especially for the families, the kiddos that are being raised by elderly grandparents, and we do have a lot of that. I mean, I know personally many families that have reached out, and so we try to walk them through, but our principals and our staff have been amazing in trying to educate. I believe one of the schools, Clawson Elementary, I'm not sure if they already had that, but I said, why don't you consider doing this? I said, and have some classes for parents, and you can bring them in at, 10 parents at a time, and actually provide a computer at the site where you're training the parents in how to go into Google Classroom, how to get into the attendance. So they were going to do that. I haven't followed up with them, but I think that did happen. So there's different things that we can continue to do to continue the progress. And obviously, it varies from teacher to teacher. Some teachers may give more work than others. Some teachers have that higher expectations than others, but that's where our principals are coming in. Principals have to be visiting their Google Classrooms virtually so that they are very well aware of what's going on in the Google Classrooms. For those teachers that are at home, they're following the expectations provided by DUSD. For those teachers that are on campus, they're also following expectations, and the principals are making sure they're doing what they're supposed to, and that assignments are being given, grades are being taken. With the beauty of technology and Google Classroom, I feel that our teachers, if any of you have ever been a teacher, you know that there's a lot of grading involved. And I heard one of the teachers today say, if we go back to hybrid, I want to continue being able to use Google Classroom, because everything gets submitted through Google Classroom, and so grading is just a lot easier than you having a stack of 150 papers to grade. So there's a lot of benefit to our program without just, we're not just dismissing the struggle that we have. And I don't think we are the only district that has the technology struggles, being raised by grandparents, having no technology. But I think we've made some strides, and the teachers overall feel that we're at a good point. We've made some gains, and let's say we were to say, okay, we're going to go back to hybrid in 2 weeks. They feel it'd be a loss of what we've done so far. Let us get used to this, at least for this quarter, and then really analyze what the situation is like and make a decision about quarter 2, so that we can get ready for that hybrid program, because it's going to take some weeks of communicating this to parents. You've all heard that sometimes we call, we have non-existing phone numbers. We have to try to get the emergency contact. So there's several ways that we need to communicate to parents, and we need to provide enough time for that transition to happen, so that we don't have a lot of confusion from the parents now saying, okay, we're ready to go back to hybrid. Wait a minute, we still have kids online. One of the other things that I'm going to be doing is that we did a survey. We did a survey a few weeks before school started, so that parents could identify and make a selection on what option of schooling they would have for their child. And option number 1 was, if you remember, that was to enroll them hybrid. Option number 2 was to allow them to stay online at least first quarter, with the idea that when they felt more comfortable, they could return to hybrid at quarter 2 or at semester. And then option number 3 was that they've chosen to stay online all year. And we have many families that selected online all year. So I think at this point, probably in the next couple of weeks, we need to survey the families again. Now that they've had a good, they would have had a good 7 weeks of online school, to make that educated decision. If they've been online and they've struggled, maybe they're going to change their mind and say, you know what, I need my child to at least go to hybrid for 2 days a week and at least have that teacher interaction. So we'll be doing that in the next 2 weeks. But as Denise chimed in, you've had meetings with the principals in the last couple of weeks. You've heard what they've said, but I think we're moving forward and adapting to the challenges and trying to meet families halfway and really trying to support them. This by no means has been easy, but I think what we've done has been enough to at least support some families. And I do know, Mr. Brain and board members, that some families get frustrated, and I specifically try to help one out, and a parent just said, oh, we're just going to withdraw them. And I said, well, where are you going to put them? Well, I don't know. And I said, do you know that by law you have to have your child in school up until this? It's a law. And they're like, yeah, we know, but and it wasn't so much because of the school dynamics or the challenges of the online. It was because of the support systems that were not at home because both parents worked. And I said, and I did say, we have a free learning space for your child, so we try to do that, and then they just make the decision. So I think some parents kind of just give up, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to reach out to those parents and making sure that, hey, there is a learning spot for a learning space for your child. We can help you. Don't just not send them to school because you don't have, somebody to take care of them. So Denise, I don't know if you have any other information as to how our hybrid is going.
Okay, Anna, I don't want to cut you off because that's a lot of information for us to digest, but I think that the main purpose of the meeting was to discuss the enrollment and the concern about kids not availing themselves of the learning. The second part was where were we as far as, where we were down the path that the board had agreed to prior, and I think you've already answered all those questions. That we're just going to continue the way we are, and you're going to continue to monitor it.
Yeah.
So I think that you answered the second part. The other thing that I want to just quickly do, and unless Denise, you have anything to add, anything to that, because the technology comes up so much, Marco, if you could just come up here for 1 second and kind of give us an overview so that the board knows when people ask us questions, just give us an overview of what's happening, how you see the effectiveness and some of the concerns that you've heard Mene and everybody else mention here about what parents have said.
Sure, Mr. President, members of the board. We recognize that this new method of instruction has been very challenging for students and parents, but also teachers and staff. I have 2 kids that are attending school this way, and it was very frustrating for them at the beginning. But after attending over 4 years of online school myself, I can tell you that the first couple of weeks when you start something like this is training. It's getting used to the system, know where everything is, how to submit assignments, and what the teacher expectations are. So I see this myself as a training period for both the students and the parents. So if we can use our tech support email system and phone system as a way of gauging the progress, I can tell you that the number of calls and emails have dramatically decreased. The Sunday before school started, we were taking calls at 11 o'clock at night, the Sunday before school started, just because parents were still panicking about students not being able to log in. Where do I find this? Where do I go? But after a couple of weeks, it has drastically decreased.
So you don't have any situation you're dealing with now that's a deterrent to their learning that's insurmountable?
Not in a general basis. The issues that we have are individual to students not being able to log in or access a specific resource, but nothing that is affecting all students globally. We did have a couple of issues in the beginning, but they've been resolved. One of my students has a school-issued device just because I wanted to test it at home, and I can tell you that the device works as it's supposed to, but it's just not working out for my son. He attended school today for the first time. Because it just wasn't working for him. Not the technology, but he needs support. He needs that support. So we just decided to take him to school today. But the device itself is doing what it's supposed to. And my oldest, he's in 6th grade. He's doing everything on his own now. He'll borrow my phone. He'll take pictures, upload them, send them to the teacher. He got the hang of it. But like I said, we recognize that it's been very challenging.
Very good. So you feel that your department, and I think I speak on behalf of the board, we really, really appreciate what you're doing. You never anticipated anything like this. And you feel like what's happening now that's under control, and any troubleshooting that comes up that seems to be a deterrent to some kid wanting to get online or whatever, you can handle that.
Correct. And I can tell you that we're very fortunate. We have a very good team that's dedicated to helping our parents and our students and our teachers when they need it. And we can see what the students see on their screens. We can walk them step by step on how to do it. We post it on Facebook, on our website, our phone number, and our tech support email. And like I said, as soon as we posted it, we started getting calls and emails on those lines. So that system is working. And we're able to provide, I believe, the support that the families need to be successful.
Members of the board, questions?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just had wanted to pass on congratulations to Marco and his staff. I did have a parent contact me and say they were having troubles at the first part, and they didn't know what to do, and they finally got back over in contact with the IT, and they fixed it. You guys, thank you very much on behalf of this parent. And apparently a smooth sailing now for that parent-student. So I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you.
Okay, any other board members have any questions or comments regarding IT? By the way, for those of you that don't know, Marco Durasso is the director. It oversees that whole department. Members of the board, do you have any other questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much.
So, Mr. Bray?
Go ahead, Anna.
Marco, can you give me an update? What's our total number of devices that we have given out, including the the ones from yesterday?
Ms. Amaniego, we don't have the final numbers yet, but it's close to 2,000 devices so far.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay,
close to
so we've
2,000
given out
devices.
about 2,000 devices.
Correct, and
of
just,
course, these are all new devices, right, Marco?
that's correct, that's just what I was gonna say. These are all brand-new devices, Chromebooks and iPads.
Okay. All right, and then what about hotspots that we provided to some families?
Hotspots, we ordered 20, and so far we've distributed 7. Some of these families had even more than 3 students on one household. So we've distributed 7 so far, and we're still waiting on numbers from the principal so that we can distribute the rest.
Okay, and my last question would be, where are we with being able to provide access to our school's Wi-Fi to the neighborhood, homes around each school?
Okay, we were up on the roof actually just before the meeting started. We're still trying to figure out some kinks with it. The company is out of Florida, but they have been really good in troubleshooting with us. We're on the phone with them. They're constantly sending us updates, and we're trying to figure out why it's still not fine-tuned the way it should be, but we're close. We're close.
Okay, all right. And what this will do, board members, is every school will have, it's kind of like a cell tower, and so the areas within maybe a 13 block radius of each school will be able to access the school's Wi-Fi for those students that have our devices loaned out to them. It's only going to be for those students with with devices from our district, but once that is set up and done, you can have many families using that Wi-Fi if they got one of our devices. So I'm really anxious to see that moving forward. But Marco, I do want to publicly thank you. They worked, Marco and his department, CESA helped out, DHS security, DHS staff. If you didn't cruise by the high school when we initially started giving out devices, there were lines and lines of cars. We had a second delivery date that was held at district office on a Saturday, and Marco Cesar and Mr. Pineda helped out and worked that day, and I think they were there from like 7 to about 5 o'clock, and people thought they were doing COVID testing because there was lines and lines of cars waiting to get their device. And so Marco, thank you, and your staff. I still owe you guys a meal.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marco.
Thank you, sir.
All right, any
Before
final
you-
comments? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. I just wanted to mention that today it was reported in the Sierra Vista Herald that the Sierra Vista schools were going to resume in-person instruction September 14th, and K through 8 was going to go in-person. High school was going to do the hybrid model because of the 1,400 students that they had. They didn't want them there all at once. They still are going to offer a flexible model for K through 8 for those parents that are more comfortable with online learning. And they're going to resume 5-day in-person instruction October 14th if the data for the coronavirus remains as low as it is now or even goes lower. And it also reported today that Wilcox is maintaining the option for parents to be online instruction. That will continue, and they're already doing 2-day a week in person and with a hybrid. And their board meeting to check the numbers is next Monday. So thank you. That was reported today.
Okay, good. Anybody else, members of the board? I think we'll conclude the discussion on this. I think again the purpose was concerns that were expressed by the administration regarding numbers, and then of course associated with that with the students and their learning, and of course then thanks to Manny and Marco for all that information. And Marco answered some good questions to some of those parents and other people that are concerned about the technology, and a lot of that stuff is understandable. So the final word is then, if I can just summarize it, that we're going to continue the way we're going, and that the hybrid is still in the future, and no decision. Of course, there was no decision forthcoming today anyway. But there's no decision other than the discussion and the direction to the administration to continue as recommended by Superintendent Samaniego. All right, any final comments or questions? Denise, do you have anything? Okay, we're moving on then. We're going to item 2B, discussion action on Douglas High School athletics. And this is, the discussion is only regarding fall sports. And the way we left it last time, board members, is that when we had that lengthy discussion after the presentation by Mr. Ortega, that the board there was no decision made, and that the board was going to leave it, that if any board member wanted to revisit it, that they would notify me and we would call a special meeting. I didn't get any information from anybody, any request. So the reason it's on the agenda is because I'm requesting it of myself. I think it needs to be addressed, and thankfully we're going to get a final word on a recommendation. We already have Ms. Samaniegos, it's there, but I've asked Mr. Walker to be here this morning, and Mr. Walker is the principal of the high school, as everybody knows. He's the final authority. He's got all the final responsibility of the school, including athletics, coaches, everybody involved. They work under Mr. Walker. And as with the graduation question last year, Mr. Walker had to spearhead that as well. And he's back here again today to answer questions and to give his recommendation and how he feels, and this will be the ultimate word from the high school on this whole situation. So, Mr. Walker, would you come up here? And then while you're there, I'm going to have Mrs. Cox read the comments. And the reason I wanted to save them to this point is they would be fresh on our mind when we got into this. Not that we would have read them before all that lengthy discussion about the enrollment, then they would have been forgotten. So we've got some public comments, and you know, I always want to say that's what it's all about. We need to hear from our constituents. We need to hear from parents. We need to hear from, and we've got we've got an abundance of them. So we're going to take the time and we're going to listen to them, and then Mr. Walker, you can respond as well, and then we'll go from there. So Denise, you're going to get the pleasure of excuse me, of reading them all.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. The first request is from Richard Yanis, 3150 East 10th Street. It's a concerned parent. And it reads, "To whom it may concern, attached you will find my call to the public forum, and below you will see my comments on this issue at hand. Good afternoon, President and board members. My name is Richard Yanis, and residing at 3150 East 10th Street, I write this with much concern to the upcoming future of the Douglas High School athletics fall season. I feel that there needs to be an action on this item, for our children deserve better. My child has been preparing all off-season for this upcoming season, and I feel that the children should be practicing. Athletic Director Mr. Ortega presented a fantastic presentation that explained how it would be highly controlled environment and had brilliant ideas on how to do this to keep every student safe. We owe it to our children to get them back out there and put some normality back in their lives. Sports are a vital aspect of many student athletes. I am aware of the current pandemic, but I feel having our children in a controlled environment is what needs to happen. I reside right next to the airport park, and the crowds of children and people that gather are more than what one would feel comfortable with, since there are no controls put in place. These students are out there playing because no other sports are going on, and these kids want to play. It would be much more regulated for Douglas Athletics to allow these students to play and control what they are doing and implement safe and healthy practices. I ask you to consider our children, their years of hard work and dedication to these sports, and their mental health as they have had their lives as they know it halted. Now that our numbers are down and the county and state have considered it safe to begin sports, we owe it to them to allow it. When making your decision to think about these kids and what is most important to them as high school athletes, it is safer for them to practice in a controlled environment than it is for them to go to Walmart. Everyone is going to. As many know, Walmart also has controls in place and has continued business as usual under this controlled environment. Lastly, let's not give our student athletes a late start into practice. Thus, it would significantly affect their overall season. I feel that it would be entirely unfair for these children to put them behind in starting practice and have them come out and play other schools that started practicing before them and expect them to be competitive. Please remember this is entirely about the children and giving them back some normality in this not so normal world we are currently living in. Sincerely, Richard Yanes.
We won't comment on them. Maybe we can make reference to the comments later in our discussion, but those are addressing the board as a call to the public, so we don't respond. So go ahead.
Okay, the next one, Jesus Hugo Valenzuela, 2120 12th Street, representing his daughter Victoria Valenzuela, number 3. After careful consideration of the most recent AIA scenarios returned to athletics, I find myself conflicted as a parent, but encouraged as a coach, a fan, and a parent who believes in a spirit of competition and the value of teamwork. This terrible pandemic has changed our lives and altered our lifestyle and threatened our nation. It is our resolve and determination as a responsible community of parents, coaches, and administrators that will make it possible to return to field in accordance to guidelines set by the AIA. Please consider returning our children to the field for our community and for those who were not able to leave it on the field. Once a Bulldog, always a Bulldog. Okay, the next one, Vicente Cordona, 2900 Barcelona Drive, Douglas High School football team. I, Vicente Cordona, believe it is time and safe for us student athletes to be allowed back and playing on the field. There are plans put in place for us to be safe, and we want to play. Thank you for your time and consideration. Marcus Torres Thomas, 2530 11th Street, DHS football. I, Marcus Torres Thomas, an athlete of the Douglas High School football team, believe that it is safe for us players of all season sports to return to practice and play in games. Our coaches have spent countless hours in developing a plan for us athletes to return safely to playing. My parents are all for me returning to playing and practicing football again, as they think it is good for me to get out and do something that I enjoy under the correct precautions that the Douglas High School athletic director and head coaches have put together to keep all athletes safe. I really hope that you guys take into consideration what I have said so far in allowing the season of fall sports to happen. It would be amazing to get back on the field and play again soon. Michael Monke, 403 Elizabeth Avenue, Douglas High School football. I request permission to address the board to plead with them to have a football season this year. If we do have a football, we will follow the guidelines the school board gives us for our safety. We have been working hard all summer and want the opportunity to get back to doing what we love. Thank you. Deidre Victor, 2045 15th Street, representing a student. I am a senior and have been a student athlete for all my 4 years at Douglas High School. I have participated in soccer, volleyball, and track. I cannot imagine where I would be without these sports, as they have played a significant role in my character and growth as an individual. The experience of being a student athlete cannot be easily explained to those who have not participated. It is merely an experience you will not understand unless you have cried after a bad loss, ran until your legs gave out, and spent dozens of hours after school to practice. I know countless other seniors and I will be disappointed after committing these 4 years simply to be canceled. We also do not want our athletic director and coaches' efforts to make this season happen to go to waste. I urge those in charge, please consider that it is more than just a sport to us students. We will take every safety precaution and procedure to ensure we are healthy and end our final year as student athletes for Douglas High School the way we have been dreaming since we first walked onto our court, field, and track. Juan Pablo Garcia, 2750 East 15th Street, representing Douglas High School football. I am a student athlete, football player at Douglas High School, and I am appealing for the board's decision in the meeting that occurred Tuesday. I think it's unfair that the board denied us because our DHS athletic coaches took days to make safety guidelines for us athletes and have been doing all they can to make a safe environment. And for the board to make a decision in less than 15 minutes was unfair and unjust. Also, for our athletes to be training for months and to hear that their district made a decision under 15 minutes on a presentation that took days to make. Us DHS students athletes need a fall sports season, and we won't give up until we get what we want. We are one team. Stay in the fight. We want to play. Cruz and Nidia Carrillo, 3312 North Iris Avenue. They're representing Joshua Carrillo. Let us play. As our new generation of young students form, we have dreams, not only to play on the field those Friday nights, but on the big stage, accomplishing our goals to be more than what we are. Please do not take away 1 year of football for us. Let us play. Even if our teammates have to take safety measures, as a team will do anything just to play. As a parent of Joshua Carrillo, I let my son play along with his teammates. I will provide my son with protective gear, either if it's a mask made for football, my son will be safe on and off the field. Please do not take the season away from my son or his teammates. Sincerely, the parents of Joshua Carrillo. Maggie Nieblas, 1574 9th Street, representing, she's a parent. I am not only a mother of a senior, but also a healthcare worker who believes in having the students resume fall sports. After hearing the last school board meeting that included all phases the coach will implement to resume, I do not see a problem with getting athletes back on the field, courts, and mats. COVID-19 numbers continue to decline in our area, and AIA has approved sports to resume. With proper education by the parents to their athletes and with proper guidance from the skilled coaches, I am in support of resuming fall sports. Thank you for your time and consideration. Maggie Nieblas. Edna Gomez, 1105 12th Street. Please accept this correspondence as a symbol of support for the return of fall sports. These are trying times, but I firmly believe that the coaches will take all necessary precautions and safety measures to ensure and preserve the health of our children. The return of sports would be allowing our youth to have a mental and physical outlet for the academic and life challenges that they have been given. It will allow them to look forward to something that they love, cherish, and deeply enjoy doing. Thank you, Edna Gomez. Garilu Martinez, DHS Spirit Line parent, 6450 Santa Paula Drive. My name is Garilu Martinez. My daughter Laritza Martinez is currently on the DHS Spirit Line. I am in support of the fall sports beginning back up with all the appropriate security measures in place. This isolation period can have a negative impact on our children's state of mind. Therefore, I believe it is very important that our children remain active and committed throughout these difficult times. Emily Gonzalez, DHS Swim, 2128 Green Camp Avenue. I believe we should have sports back this year because the self-reflection chart showed devastating results. This pandemic is getting a lot of students' heads. More are becoming less motivated to do simple things. I feel that not having access to the courts field is a big part of that. We can't see our teammates, coaches, or friends due to this pandemic. If we do eventually have sports back, we are going to follow school and sanitation guidelines. Our minds will be more active and do more daily activities. We'll be able to sleep and eat better if we go back to playing. Plus, we'll be more excited every day if we get to play our sport. Although it might be risky, we will play with face masks and try to maintain 6 feet distance. It will help refresh my mind and get me back on track, and I'm pretty sure it will help other student athletes as well. Joaquin Escalante, DHS Soccer, 513 Fir Avenue. Hello, this is Joaquin Escalante, and I am now a senior at Douglas High School. I am very concerned about not having any sports for the high school due to coronavirus. I have been playing sports in the high school ever since I was a freshman, and I don't really think it is fair we lose the chance to play sports this year. We've put too much work, dedication, and time into playing these sports just to lose the chance to play. I honestly don't agree on canceling sports because we still need to put our names out there. And not only our name, but Douglas's name as well. I really hope that this message is taken under consideration. Thank you for your time. Francisco Parra, DHS Swim, 848 11th Street. For seniors, this is our last year. This is do or die time. The virus is dangerous. It is, but like everything in life, there comes a challenge that will try to get us down and keep us down. But the greatest thing to fear is fear itself. Bulldogs stand their ground. We stand our ground. Bulldog country forever. We seniors, us athletes, we will not stop trying until there's nothing left to try. Me being the captain of the swim team, my team looks to me for answers, and I won't stop until I know I've tried to give them. The season, the virus has taken enough from us already. I know you board members don't want one of getting sick and having it on our conscience, but it's a personal decision. We decide to be there for our team. We don't have to for my teams. We're family, and I want to spend my last season with my family. So respectfully, I hope you guys will allow our season to start. Sports isn't just an extracurricular activity. It's a place where we can go and forget about our problems, work on ourselves, become better, and excel on the field, in the pool, on the course, and in life. It's a lifestyle. It's been such an important role in our high school years. When we feel we have no one to talk to, our team is there for us. More than it's a sport, it's a way of life, and it's our decision to be there. Thank you for your time. Celeste Vasquez, DHS Spirit Line parent, 3045 13th Street. I would like to take this opportunity to share my thoughts and support for DHS sports to resume. I strongly believe that being physically active positively builds our children's mental health along with physical strength. Actively participating in sports is a healthy outlet for many stressors that our children are currently encountering with the many challenges that happened in the last several months. My daughter in particular is a senior for DHS, and this is her fourth year participating in Spirit Line. Mrs. Barayardos has taken the time to explain in great detail the outline plan and phases of reopening. I have complete confidence in Mrs. Barayardos in executing the detailed plan to ensure safety of her athletes at all times. I believe that with parental support and involvement, our children can resume athletics at this time. If you should require any additional information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Ariel Estrada, DHS Swim, 2501 10th Street. I was wondering if you would consider letting us have a swim team this year. You might be thinking why you should allow us to be having a swim team, so here are some of the reasons why. Since there has been no sports, I haven't been mentally okay. I'm doing so much better at the moment, so that leads me to do other things I'm not so proud of. I want to do better and get back on track, so I need something to occupy my time, so I'm not home all day. Sports used to be what would help me. I love playing softball, swimming, and soccer. Sadly, due to the virus, there isn't really any of that, and it's been hard, and I just hope you consider allowing swim since it's not a high-contact sport. Audrey Ballesteros, 4207 North Washington Avenue, representing a student athlete in volleyball. I've been depressed and unmotivated without volleyball. Volleyball is my safe place. I would have something forward to do and be motivated every day, whether it be for a game or practice. It would motivate me to keep my grades up in school. Melissa Rodriguez, 915 East 1st Street, DHS parent. Dear DUSD School Board, thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I know the board has mixed feelings about letting athletics commence at Douglas High School. I understand the concern and the fear of the unknown, but I also know that it is extremely important to provide our student athletes a safe, structured environment for athletic participation. Our kids need this for their social and emotional well-being. We cannot continue to compare ourselves with larger cities such as Phoenix. We need to look at our county and surrounding districts if we want to make a fair comparison. Currently, our county has been given the green light for a hybrid model of virtual and in-person learning, meeting the benchmark presented in 3 areas. Cases, a 2-week decline in the number of cases, percent positivity, 2 weeks of percent positivity less than 7% within the county, and COVID-like illness. 2 weeks of hospital visits due to CLI below 10% in the region. In addition to the virtual learning, our district can initiate the in-person learning through athletics by implementing the phased-in approach presented by Mr. Ortega and his coaching staff. I prefer our district provide safe avenues for interaction rather than have students find unsafe avenues without structure or guidance that may lead to making poor choices that may be more dangerous to them than COVID. For many of the students, they rely on the opportunities that the district provides through extracurricular activities. in order to further their academic and athletic growth at the next level. We ask that students be given the opportunity to commence the recommended phases of participation with all precautions set forth. And it is closely monitored, then we will entrust you, the board, to make the decision to further initiate the phased approach. Sincerely, Melissa Rodriguez, DHS parent of a student athlete. And that's all.
That's it? Well, first of all, I want to thank all those people that took the time to address the board. And actually, most of those were students, right? And board members, gratifying to hear not only that they communicate as well as they do, but they're reasonable in the way they state things. So, Mr. Walker, with all that, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you follow up on anything that you think is pertinent for the board to hear before we decide to do one thing or another. And of course, we'll have an opportunity for discussion, and then we'll have Ms. Samaniego after you. Okay? So go ahead. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon. My stance is going to be what it's been in the past, is that, yes, we approve to move forward with phase one, where it's small pods practices for the athletes to get out there in that safe learning area. They've done a good job of preparing and coming up with some plans for these things to move forward. The AIA has approved practices, but not games yet. So, and that's kind of what we're looking for, is to get the athletes back out there. I know when I was younger, it probably would have drove me nuts not being able to get out onto the fields and do those things. So I completely understand where the athletes are coming from, and I believe we can do it safely and keep the social distancing and the cleaning and those things. So my recommendation is begin with phase one and see how it goes.
Have you had an opportunity to talk to? We have the advantage that he's also not only the principal, but he served as athletic director for many years, so you well understand the situation. Have you had an opportunity to speak to your staff regarding this?
Yes.
And you want to just kind of give us a brief recap of maybe how they felt about the travel and the parts?
Overall, well, we're talking phase one. We're not even talking games. AIA has not approved games, so we're not even going into the game stage yet. So what we're talking about is getting the kids out there, getting them to work out. Do they all want to play games? Absolutely, everybody does. Is it? The AIA has not approved us to do that yet, so it's, to me, that's a non-issue right now. It's what can we do safely for the kids and get them that exercise, that mental stability, and get them out there.
As the principal of the school, and if there's any type of an infraction by one of the staff members, say that you have to whatever one of your guidelines are, that they're not following it, like wearing a mask or not doing whatever, and whoever you designate to monitor, and I would imagine athletic director and then somebody below him, probably Mitch Nelson.
Correct.
But how are you going to view and deal with staff members, coaches specifically?
If coaches aren't following it, they're done.
Okay.
We're shutting it down.
Okay. All right, before I open it up to the board, Anna, do you have anything you want to say to follow up with Mr. Walker's presentation?
Yes. As you all know, what my recommendation was last meeting, and I stand by that recommendation, which is to approve Douglas High School Athletics to begin phase one, which is their positive practice and eventually leading to competition games. I also have met with fall coaches, myself in a meeting along with athletic trainer Nelson, athletic director Mr. Ortega, and Mr. Walker as the principal. And I believe that what they have provided to me in writing as a plan and as a phased-in approach is really something that we can try. And I got the coach's word that they would be following it to the T. And I think as an athletic director, Mr. Ortega has to be monitoring and keeping a close eye on the practices, but I think we owe it to students. I know board members, you have a lot of concerns, and nobody wants, a spread of COVID on our conscience, and the superintendent, I am concerned about that. But, I kind of want to look at it as having some flexibility to, even to the learning that we have right now, and we understand that the free learning space was a mandate by the governor. Had that not happened, well, maybe many of the districts wouldn't even have their schools open to kids. But I think that even the possibility of having students interact with some of the staff to provide some of that support is very similar to what we want to do with these athletes. We know that it's not going to be a traditional athletic season, so the coaches have agreed to do whatever they need to do in order to keep the kids safe and under this phase one approach, which is opening up our fall sports so that they can start practicing, engaging with their coaches, getting back into some routines with following all the guidelines that's set forth by Mr. Ortega. So I really think it is time that we provide this outing to the kids in the safe athletic environment. I am concerned of, losing even more kids to other schools or whatever that are providing some type of athletic grouping available at their high school levels. And so I think safely it can be done. I talked extensively with Mr. Walker again yesterday, and he and I and Mr. Ortega are on the same page.
Okay, great. Okay, Randy, thanks a million. You just stay up there. We'll go around the table here. Mr. Lindeman, you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Last meeting's presentation of the plan was very good, and I can understand how this would be safe because we're controlling everything. Now, if everyone is religiously following that, then I can understand that would be all right and acceptable to be practicing. The concern that I've had all along, and I think Mr. Walker knows this, is that you practice to play a game. And AIA hasn't approved that. Well, that's good, because I don't think it's ready for games. And my concern would be, we travel a long distance. And, there's too many unknowns creating risk for our students. And I just jot down a few, if you go to like Tucson, we don't know what their locker rooms are like. If they don't let you in there, then you got a bunch of sweaty bodies on the bus or on the van, that's not good. Cramped hours, long hours, and who does the temperature checks, and things like this, the ministerial of it, your temperature checks on the athletes. Are we going to do testing? Are we going to do contact tracing like they always talk about? All of those are unknown. So as far as practicing, I think that would be a good thing. But when we cross that other bridge, there's a lot of questions on that too. So thank you.
Okay, Dr. Gomez.
Yes. And here again, like I said the last time, when you're talking about sports, you're talking about one activity in your life. All those things that Mitch just mentioned, locker rooms, traveling, this and that, those are not controlled situations. And those things can happen just by those kids going to Walmart. All those ifs that you are talking about, Mitch, are ifs that exist in the life in Douglas. It's not like it's just going to happen to the football team, or it's not going to happen to the swim team. Those people, those teams do other things, and we wouldn't know where that infection came from. If there was an infection, we don't know that there's going to be any. I read in the paper today, Marana, Mountain View, Sunnyside, and Desert View are starting practices. South Point and Push Ridge, because they go under a different circumstance because they're not public schools, they're also practicing. And South Point has said, we have a game that's supposed to be scheduled He says, but I am willing to go to Phoenix and play football games. The coach did. He said, but here again, if there's teams to play. So if other schools are practicing, and I know that there was an article in the Sierra Vista Herald about teams that were practicing already in Cochise County, I do not understand why we are holding back. I'm all for this. I think we should go to phase 1, and I think we should do it now, today, act on it.
Mr. Ramos.
Yes, my concerns, seeing the way Mr. Walker explained that there's going to be control with the social distancing on practice and everything, every thing that it can do to keep the students safe. My concerns is before practice and after practice. The students, are they going to abide by continuing social distancing, or are they going to get together, come together? We have no control over that. But I do feel that if we can at least have the students practice under a controlled environment, it would be good for them. But as I say, my concern is before and after their practice.
Mr. Sabah.
Yeah, I think I voice what Mr. Ramos just said, that they have to be controlled and they have to be well supervised. Otherwise, it's not worth it.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to respond to any of that?
Well, and Mr. Lindeman, we're at this point, we're not even talking about travel yet.
Right.
We're just talking about getting into phase 1 right now. And so, yeah, is that a concern? Absolutely. I think everybody's got that as a concern. But right now, we just want to get the kids out there and kind of control that. Mr. Ramos, I'm not sure.
I think, to tell you the truth, I think Mr. Ramos was alluding to what was presented last board meeting, where you did, the presentation was all encompassing regarding what he said about the social distancing and all of the precautions. They were pretty well outlined there in that presentation. So I don't want to preempt you, but just to say you didn't hear, but I think while he's talking, I'm thinking that it was all in the part of the presentation.
It was the pre and post practice.
Yeah.
Of coming to practice and leaving practice? Is that the question?
I think that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And when I had a discussion, it had been brought up that we would stagger arrival times of the athletes.
Okay, all right. Mr. Ramos, go ahead. You want to follow up on that?
No, that sounds really reasonable to me. The stagger the times with their arrival and them leaving. Thank you for your response, Mr. Walker.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I also, Mr. Brain?
Yes.
And Mr. Walker, I think also a lot, if the board approves this and our recommendation is that obviously this would be something exciting for the kids to return, but they also, the conversation also needs to take place with students. Just like we've done it on online learning, we've had, several discussions about what is appropriate and what is not. And we're going to ask, many of these athletes said, we're willing to do anything you ask us to do as long as you allow us back on the field. So I think that the kids need to understand that if they're not following, this could be shut down. And so I think that can be done, that those discussions can happen, staggering times and making sure, hey, practice is over, goodbye. If you guys want to get together at a park or at a house, whatever, that's on you. But, while we're on the field, you guys need to go home.
Okay, fine. The other thing, just for clarification, we're just talking fall sports. Nobody's going to jump the gun on the other ones.
No.
I mean, there's not going to be anybody saying, well, they started, why don't we get started going? This is a very, very serious and a grave decision being made by this board a couple of the board members expressed and the superintendent about, this isn't a decision that's going to be taken very lightly because, God forbid, as Anna said, we get a breakout of any type. All right, so I think the topic has been thoroughly covered. I think with all of the comments that we heard, I think we've got plenty of information from the presentation that was made last week. So it's time for asking the board, what is your pleasure?
May I make a motion, Mr. President?
Mr. Lindeman.
I move to approve the Phase 1 athletic program.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sabal. As presented, according to the guidelines and everything. Go ahead, sit down. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, and again, for clarification, we're just talking fall sports. All right?
And that's a yes for me too, Alma.
Well, if this were a state board, you'd be ex officio anyway, so you would have a
Yes,
vote.
I know.
So you would have a vote. All right. So we got some good guidelines. Randy, thank you so much. I know you've been deeply involved in this, and I know you've got the welfare of the students at heart as well. You've made some tough decisions within the last 5-6 months, and been involved in some tough, of course, in collaboration with your staff, and that's always important. So we wish everybody the best, stay healthy, and let's just hope we just see good things come out of it. Thanks, Randy. You guys, all right, many of you too, thank you for your presentation, and we're going to move now to item D, which is Mr.
C.
Soto, I'm sorry.
C.
Item C.
Item C.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Item C, we need a motion to take that off the table. Mr. Lindeman?
I move to remove item, or to put item C off the table onto the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, roll call.
Wait.
Yes.
Why are we taking it off?
Because it was tabled.
It was tabled.
It was tabled last meeting, and we didn't, when you table something, if you say till the next meeting and it's automatically on the agenda, that wasn't included, I don't think, in his motion. He just said, I moved the table, so now we have to take it off the table.
Oh, okay.
Okay? All right, so any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes, and so, Mr. Walker, you can inform her that she's free, she's volleyball, right?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Probably watching.
Yeah, so I think it would be necessary to have, that's the reason it was in that position on the agenda, just in case. All right, now we go to Mr. Soto and the discussion action on the approval of a sole source provider for 2020, 2021. Mr. Soto.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just an item. Typically, we do the sole sources at the beginning of the school year. Like you remember, I think we did it in earlier July or the one in June, but I don't remember. So this is for Alice training, and this is what the security team kind of does. We use it to do trainings on active shooters, you name it. So we have the opportunity to get into a 3-year contract with them that is going to reduce the cost tremendously. Again, we have all of the documentation, but this just came, and we didn't bring it earlier because of not knowing what's going to happen. Are we actually going to have kids in the classrooms, teachers, whatever? So now, just to be prepared and coming and hopefully starting the hybrid for second quarter, I'm just asking you for your approval to approve this as a sole source provider.
You know, I always think it's humorous to me that when there's a statement of sole source by the sole source person.
Correct.
That they say, we're the only ones that can do it. You know, and
Yeah.
that's why they have to certify that they are the
Right.
only one. But
We do
I'm always humored by that. Anywhere you've ever been, they always say, we're the sole source. You can't get it from anybody else. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve
I
that.
move to approve.
By Mr. Lindeman, second?
Second.
By Dr. Gomez. By Dr. Gomez. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bahrain?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Soto. I guess that's the agenda, right?
Yes.
Did you have anything you want to say, Denise? Entertain a motion to adjourn
I move to adjourn.
by Mr. Lindeman, second by Dr. Gomez. All in favor signify by saying aye.